All right, I think we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the virtual event, Youth in Afghanistan Peace Process, Voices of Diversity and Inclusion. Thanks for joining us. My name is Akhil. I'll be kicking things off before turning it to our Ms. Sohani and Ms. Jigyasa, who are our facilitators for today's virtual discussion with our panelists. We are really excited to have everyone here today for what we find to be a really interesting discussion about inclusion of youth, Afghanistan youth in peace processes. Before we get started, I would give a brief background on today's discussion and introduce our panelists. The past 40 years of Afghan history have been marked by near constant upheaval and war. Because of the conflict, young people in Afghanistan face significant challenges spanning from health, education, employment to fair political structures, gender inequalities, and many others. Uh, with decades of lost educational opportunities and unemployment, a great burden has been put on young people, shading a cloud of darkness on their present as well as future. Yet the youth have long been on the front lines, standing for their rights. They have been a great force and leading peace efforts. From mediating local disputes to advocating for democratic processes and creating their own space for supporting their fellows, they have been forcefully pushing for an end to the country's nearly 4 decades of war. Uh, in this context, Jammu Kashmir Policy Institute brings to you a virtual panel discussion, Youth in Afghanistan Peace Process, Voices of Diversity and Inclusion, to hear the opinion of Afghan youth and understand the current peace processes and the major socio-economic and political factors relevant for the peace processes from their perspective. The intention of the webinar is to engage youth to start a conversation on the path ahead in Afghanistan beyond the conflict narrative and draw up a new narrative for the peace building processes. To understand the perspective of the Afghan youth and the importance of their inclusion in the contribution to the political processes, especially in the current peace process, let me introduce our panelists. We have today with us Lima Anwari. Lima Anwari did her bachelor's degree in Islamic law, faculty of Kabul University, and obtained her master's degree from Kardan University in the specialized field of leadership and management. She is equipped with almost 9 years work experience devoted to management, policy development, gender issues, human rights, juvenile justice, training, mentoring, and legal affairs with various national Afghan women network and international organizations such as Just Sector Support Program, UN Women, US Aid Promote Project, and International Developmental Law Organization. She has been engaged with the volunteer work, including peace building since 2014 through attending different events on peace and security. She has been engaged in different events related to the youth involvement in peace process. She is a member of the she's also a member of various platforms which work for which have a lot of volunteer work in their credit. So also we have today with us Ahmed Zia, who is a social entrepreneur and peace advocate, UNESCO MGIP Youth Waging Peace Fellow, and a US Embassy LEAP International Exchange Program alumnus. He is also the founder of the Youth Design Lab for Peace in Afghanistan. The Youth Design Lab is a part of the efforts to foster the prevention of violent extremism through education and youth engagement. Ahmed Zia, currently an undergraduate student at the American University of Afghanistan, pursuing bachelor's degree in business administration. He has been also working as a project manager for implementing the civil society cohesion building on the Afghan peace process in 16 provinces of Afghanistan, supported by the United States Institute of Peace. I welcome you all today. Thank you so much for joining us. So, without much further ado, I would like to pass the mantle to our director, Miss Sohani. Thank you. Over to you, Sohani.
Thank you so much, Akhil, for that broad and detailed outline of what this event is about and for introducing our panelists. This is to mention that we also have on our panel today Ms. Fatima Hussaini, who for some reason hasn't been able to join us yet. We are hoping that she will show up and that we'll be able to connect with her for the event. So without any further ado, let's just jump right in. So I'd like to first invite Ms. Lima Anvari to share with us a little more about herself and from what we have gathered from her experience of 9 whole years working on gender issues, human rights, etc. And Lima has also worked with many women and youth-led networks too. So Lima, we'd like you to please share with us a little bit about your engagements and the work that you've been doing so that we can get to know you and our audience can get to know your work better. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here to share our concerns, experience, or any knowledge that we have related to the inclusion of youth in Afghanistan, specifically in the peace process issues. From the time of university, I have been engaged in some volunteer activities to somehow make us responsible for the society. For what we are gaining, we need to have something give back to our society. So from that time, when I graduated from university, I started my journey with an internship with the Afghan Women Network, and then promoted to the advocacy officer and gender officer, and then later on joined another international organizations. While at the beginning, it was really challenging for me, especially because I am a girl in a male-dominated and discriminated society in Afghanistan, in a patriarchal society. It's really, really challengeable for girls who grown up and who are willing to work outside the home. But despite all these issues, as I have my supportive family, it makes less challenging for me to work in the society.
Thank you so much, Lima, for introducing yourself. Now we move to Ahmed Zia Moman, and we'd like to hear more about you and your work. I call him Zia, but Ahmed Zia, we'd like to know more about your work and your background, especially with the Youth Design Lab for Peace in Afghanistan that you founded.
Thank you so much. Once again, a very good afternoon, everyone present here. Thank you so much for having me, Sohini. And it's such a pleasure for having the opportunity to be a part of such a talented group here today to discuss and also share the insights about the Afghan peace process, in particular the inclusion of youth. And thank you for the generous introductions, by the way. I'm Ahmed Zia Moman, currently working with MediaTech Afghanistan for implementing the civil society cohesion building on Afghan peace process. At the same time, I'm the vice president of also the Youth Design Lab for Afghanistan. In particular, Youth Design Lab is efforts to foster the prevention of violent extremism through education and engagement. On November, we have had over 50 Afghan youth from across Afghanistan in universities, also included school students, who provided with a platform and tools to engage, discuss, ideate, and design initiatives that promote peace in the region. Luckily that we have had that students and they have worked on their projects, and now we have been working to organize our second cohort coming soon with cooperation of that youth. And that program would be supported by the Global Citizenship Foundation in cooperation of UNESCO and JKPI in Afghanistan. I would also like to mention previously, I worked with Advanced for Progressive Thinking. It's one of the largest youth leading youth focused organization in Afghanistan that promotes the culture of peace, reconciliation, tolerance, and acceptance. Since its inception, it has worked with more than 25,000 students throughout the region and impacted on capacity building programs like reasoning skills, debate skills, leadership, and also they have provided an exposure trips. I believe that debate and such dialogue is the best tool for the conflict resolution, at the same time for the civic engagement. And most importantly, such dialogue is an essential tool for developing and maintaining democracy in open societies in Afghanistan. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amanzia. We would love to know a little more about the civil society cohesion building on the Afghan peace process that you're involved in with the USIP. It directly links with the inclusion and diversity lens, obviously, that we are trying to focus on for today's discussion. So could you share a little bit about this project, perhaps, and why it is deemed important?
Thank you so much, Sohini. In terms of the civil society cohesion building project in Afghanistan, the main objective of this is to listen, engage civil society youth leaders in 16 provinces of Afghanistan and support them to understand various components of peace process and their relevance in Afghanistan. Even more, to enhance the capacity of civil society youth organization to be engaged in peace process and make some noticeable contribution and also on the national and international level. At first, in this project, we have been working with 320 organizations throughout the country in 17 provinces. In every organizations, we are closely working with 20 civil society organizations. And then in every province, we have distributed questionnaires for finding the gap maps, the spoilers that affected the Afghan peace and also the insecurities in the region. For example, corruption, also violence against women, and at the same time, some other major issues that is happening in the rural areas. Once we have the questionnaires, then we are collecting these questionnaires and making an analytical report where we are preparing the civil society members for the 2 days workshop. And in these 2 days workshop, you see that picture that it's one of the rural areas of Afghanistan called Uruzgan. If you look to that picture there, we have youth, we have a person, and probably I'm just guessing that he might be 16, 55. And we have women, and at the same time a middle age. This is one of the rural area in Afghanistan called Uruzgan, and they have come together and identifying the root causes of violent extremism, war in their societies. We all come to a point without social peace, we cannot achieve political peace. And for that, we need to sit together, we need to negotiate, we need to find the differences, and we need to find that common thing that makes us unite. And then it may lead us for something sustainable and something that can help us to achieve peace. I also want the importance of it, why that is important to include youth and civil society members in Afghanistan, in particular in rural areas. First, because civil society currently in Afghanistan and youth and rural areas are very active. You better know that they are running a lot of youth organizations in different regions for the capacity building programs. They're creating campaigns. They're working on rural areas with a lot of marginalized communities, and they have influence, and they better know what's going on in their societies. For that reason, I would say that's for three main reasons we are aiming to support and include the civil society, in particular youth in rural areas. For number one, for the awareness of people about the importance of public support for the peace process. Second, as a supervisory role for the implementation of ceasefire agreement in the provinces, and putting pressure on the both sides to advance the negotiation and take into account the views of the people in the peace agreement. These are the three main reasons that we are closely engaged with the civil society and youths, where we together work for bringing social peace to communities. For that, when we train these civil societies, then from the gap map that we have provided and they are working on it, for that gap maps, when we identify what are the main causes of violence and insecurities, then we are making a prevention plan. That prevention plan from 17 provinces is going to be a regional plan. And then that regional plans that we are putting in together, then we will invite 3 civil society members to Kabul for a national conference. In this national conference, we will gather these information, these activities, these gap maps, and we will work for the national plan, and we will present it to the United States Institute of Peace at the same time with the Ministry of Peace, where we will be also advocating and also raising the voice of civil society in their direct inclusion in the One Peace process and their demands and their suggestions for that. At the end, what we are looking for having that project in provinces is that at the end of the day, the civil society leaders are equipped with appropriate tools and skills to engage with the communities to find solution for the local spoilers. Then a sustainable local peace may be possible. And that's what we want, and that's what we aim for also civil society in youth in Afghanistan.
Thank you so much, Amazia. That was a beautiful presentation, and we are grateful to learn about all the incredible work that you're doing. No wonder youth remain the main force that a nation can rely on for the future. And people like you definitely demonstrate that to no ends. Moving on from getting to know our wonderful panelists and their work, we would now move straight into the discussion where we have a couple of general questions to do with the peace process and with the way the peace process can proceed and what can come out of it. For that, I would like to invite my co-facilitator for the evening, Mr. Gyasa Gulati, who's also into our strategy and partnerships, to take on the mantle and to introduce the questions. Our panelists are going to be free to, of course, decide if they wish to answer a particular question. In case we are going to be reaching out to one or the other panelists to ask the questions, but that to no end means that the other panelists cannot contribute. So once one of the panelists have mentioned what they would have to contribute to a discussion, the other panelists can also chip in. So we'd just like you to raise your hand if you're interested to take a particular question, and then we can go forward that way. I hope that is more or less, that gives us clarity on how we are proceeding. Over to you, Jigyasa.
Thank you very much, Soniti, and I hope I'm audible enough. Okay. Thank you very much, Amazia and Dina ma'am. You have given a really comprehensive picture of youth engagement and how you have been working with community itself. And while I was just listening to your discussion, one question that came to my head was, are there any challenges in youth engagement or when you are actually working with the community itself? Because usually hear that the community is very conservative, and youth usually don't have much opportunities. But what we just heard from you, that rural in rural areas, youth are actually taking up various initiatives. And as the ma'am mentioned that she has been working with various groups at the very rural level. So what is the exact picture there? Are there any challenges? And if yes, what are those major challenges in terms of engagement of youth as well as of the community itself? So anyone who would like to go first?
Uh, Thank you so much for bringing it up. Uh, I would like to say that yes, there are many challenges, but I would like to just discuss three most important and major challenges that we are having in implementing this project. And first one is definitely the security, because organizing trainings, going for rural areas, interviewing them individually, it's not easy in particular, whereas the violence has been increased in the past few months. Unfortunately, on daily basis, we have more than 100 casualties in Afghanistan, including soldiers, common people, which is very frustrating, at the same time concerning for the youth and for all the organization and government that has been operating in different regions. That has been a major problem for us. And that was the reason why most of our employees were uh, assigned to go to some other districts to interview some of the people, but they were not able to do that because of the fact that there was insecurity. And secondly, there are some traditional concerns. The co-education, I would say, and at the same time for the training, there was some difficulty where we are put together women and men in Afghanistan for that training. That was concerning. At the same time, we had some resolutions for that we have created different rooms for them, and we had our trainings. And third is the internet and electricity problems. That's something that usually happens in Afghanistan, unfortunately. Hoping for it's better. A lot of projects and some training sessions were delayed due to connectivity and electricity issues.
Thank you very much, Amazia, for this answer. And I must say, there have been many times when we have invited speakers and they are unable to join us because of the connectivity issues. So thank you so much. And I'd just like to invite Lima ma'am. Ma'am, would you like to share your views on this question?
Yeah, thank you so much for raising this question. Well, there are a lot of challenges in front of you to be included in the process, specifically in the decision-making process, such as Peace One. But I think the bigger were like the electricity, the security, the educational part is covered by Ahmadiyya. I will just adding one more point, which is the manipulation of local leaders. They made youth feel that they're not just excluded from the current political system, but the leaders they were somehow like constellation resources working actively to use youth to support their own corrupt networks. So the politicians and leaders of Afghanistan, most of the time, they misuse youth for their own personal and their own group gains. And they just created some departments under their structures by the name of the youth branches of the political parties, but they are not actually helping the young people, being used to do things like gather votes or organize alliances for the political elites, and in many ways further to just erode the status of young people. And membership of these group was just perceived as a more an expression of loyalty to the ruling elite in control of whichever party the group supported, then a means of furthering a young agenda. So despite the economic challenges the youth has, like unemployment, having no access to the services, I mean equally, the services which are provided by the government to the centers and to the provinces, it's totally different. So those youth who are at the provinces, they don't have equal access to the educational services, to the health, to the economic services, to these issues. They are much more suffering than those youths who are at the centers. So these are an overall picture of the challenges that youth are facing. this was from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Actually, you have brought in a very important dimension, because since we are discussing about the inclusion of youth in the peace process, but how the leaders who are supposed to guide them is actually manipulating them. So I guess it's a very important point that you have pointed out already. And following up on this particular part, uh, what do you think, like, why is it important to include youth in decision making, especially at all different levels? And how do you see it happening? Like, what are the impacts that it could actually bring? And since ma'am, you had already mentioned about the decision making part, I would like to start with you first.
Of course, youth inclusion is really crucial issue, and their involvement can lead to a better decision and outcomes. Their participation promotes the well-being and development of youth, strengthens their commitment to an understanding of the human rights, democracy, and provides them a form of protection. It also allows them to take part in the decision-making processes. So as we know that young people have the ideas, the creativity, and they are a great source of energy to shape a better environment. And they are full of hope and thoughts. They have new minds, they have innovation and imaginations, as they are a great problem solvers. We have so many examples, like in after days in the provinces. So there was some small initiatives taken by the youth. They went to the Taliban and discussed with them and come to an agreement for a short-term ceasefire. However, it was not broadcasted on the news and media, but locally, as we are in contact with these youth at the provinces, so they had come to an agreement with these people. So to include youth in the decision making, we need to consider what kind of information and orientation and training that we need to provide them if we want to help these young people to be developed, to be informed, and to encourage their full participation. We need to provide them opportunities, and we need to provide them with timely feedback about the decision-making process and how their inputs are used and impacted the societies. Because they are the people, they can bring a lot of changes in the society. As I mentioned, that they have the energy, they have the enthusiastics for change. They are always ready for doing something tangible, and they are actually drivers of the change in our society. We have tons of examples that in the provinces, they are really like a kind of heroes. So yeah, it's really important to include them in the decision-making process at the different levels. And it is now happening. It is started, as previously in previous years, this approach was from top to down, but now from bottom of the society, the people are taking leverage of this, and they are really, as they are, they want peace. That's why they came to this point that, yeah, everyone should try their best, and youth are now the part that somehow they have trust, because the people lost their trust on the elder leaders. The people lost their trust on the government. The people somehow lost their trust on the civil society organization as well, as much compared to their trust on the years of 2006 till 2014. So if we compare it now, they have just their only hope is the youth, the new generation, to bring changes, to stop war, and to do more peace building efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And I guess the entire point of how we can actually bring sustainable and tangible change if we are including youth is really important. And I don't think it would be wrong if I say that we already have one hero with us today, that is MSC, who is already working at the grassroots level in terms of making people aware about the peace process and how it could be more inclusive. So turning straight to Amazia, what are your opinion? Like, why is it important to include youth in the decision making, especially at all different levels?
Thank you so much. Well, I would say, like, according to the survey done by the USAID in Afghanistan, in particular, survey of Afghan youth, 60% of the Afghan population is the combine of youth. So it definitely affects their role in the sustainable peace, decision-making, and other important decisions are being made in Afghanistan. I believe that youth participations lead to a better decision in outcomes. At the same time, I believe that engaging youth in all decision makings levels in government will create an intergenerational culture where you bringing people together across the age spectrum can promote great understanding and learning across the generation, and it can increase mutual respect. This will also create a value circle where more youth participation challenges traditional negative stereotype of young people, and at the same time ageist assumption about young people to help break down barriers between adults and young people, and also to build positive connection in stronger communities where youth working with the spectrum can have definitely a better and good effects on decision making at any level. Now, the current generation of Afghanistan are deeply concerned about their future as a main victim of this imposed war. Let me bring you an example, and I want to elaborate more on that, why it's important for you to be in the decision making. Today, the Taliban, also the government, both are fighting together. Majority are youth that fighting together. On the opposite sides, Taliban, they are also youth. Also in that side soldiers, they are the youth. So youth are the only victims in Afghanistan. And if we relate this to the women, also due to that violence, women and adults, young girls, also restricted from education and early marriages and a lot of other difficulties that they have been suffering for that. Therefore, youths should be at the center of any decision making towards anything that is taking place to the future of Afghanistan. Even more recently, in 2016, the United Nations Security Council also urged that to all the state countries to consider ways to give youth a great voice in decision making at the local, national, regional, international level, and it must be enforced in Afghan peace talks at any levels or anything that decides the future of Afghanistan, and also anything that is coming towards the nation. And I believe that for lasting and sustainable peace, the youth inclusion is must, and we can no longer afford the not inclusion of youth in any decision making in Afghanistan.
Thank you, Amazia, and specifically your point of having that positive connection that is built between the youth and the adults is, I guess, something that I had never thought about before. So thank you for that particular point. And with that, giving us the ground picture of how youth are actually on both the sides, and something that Neema also mentioned, that how they actually went to Taliban in terms of having that ceasefire agreement with them, but that was not something that we usually hear in the media itself. So with this, I would like to just dig deeper when we say inclusion. So we know youth is one of the major group that is outside. Second is the entire debate regarding the gender inclusion. So in what you think, how much this peace process has been able to include genders within the peace process, and what do you think could be done with this regard? So okay, maybe Gia you can start maybe.
Well, I believe comprehensive peace process agenda requires inclusiveness, and international community is also supporting to have a strong voice against the Taliban in peace negotiation. Despite the women being the most affected by the conflict, and they remain as the minor players in the political life, in the economy, and a sideline in the current peace talks, I think the Afghan women must meaningfully participate in decision making that directly affected them. I accept that women in Afghanistan have participated as a member of High Peace Council and discussion for peace agreement, but their service only was counseling body and aims to just raise public awareness rather than in decision making. I believe women can play a fundamental role in making peace and its sustainability, because if you look to the history, shows that whenever a peace deal has been negotiated or regained, like the first to suffer are more often they're women. This time, we are really looking for the Afghan women to be directly included in the Afghan peace process, where they negotiate and they really search for their rights and their concerns when there is the peace deal with the Taliban. What exactly they're looking for, and what are the areas where they can have contribution to lead for more sustainable and prosperous communities. It's critically important that the international community, I would say, must stay a stand and be a supporter of the Afghan women in Afghanistan during this peace negotiation. And also they should be a part of it, to support and give them a chance where there would be in a decision making, and also a talk on behalf of themselves. And I think their inclusion is must. They should be included. And without the women participations, we may no longer, and we may not be able to go for a very inclusive and comprehensive peace in Afghanistan.
Thank you, Amazia. Definitely, if we really want to have a comprehensive agreement, we need to include everyone in the entire peace process. And this is one of the questions that we actually received regarding the role of the international community. And thank you for actually highlighting this part, that how they can actually have that relevant push. Now I would like to turn to Lima, ma'am, and I was actually waiting for this, and I get that's why I put you on the second hold, because you are coming from that actual position. You are a woman, you have been working in this space for so long. Now, what do you think? What is the current state? Where are women and how they can be included further?
Thank you for raising this important question. If we want to have more women in the process, and if we want to have a durable, sustainable peace process, it's a must issue that women should be included, specifically those young women. Women can play major roles, specifically in 4 areas: in the negotiation team, being as a mediators, being as observers, and in the technical team. On the current peace process of Afghanistan, we have only 4 women at the negotiation teams that they are representing women. We have only 1 woman on the technical teams that they are providing support to the negotiation team, to the other teams on the backside. But in the 2 other parts, like the observation part and the mediation part, there is no woman. There is no officially group of women or male even to observe the whole process from the time that the political deal signed by the Taliban and the US on February 2020 till date. There is no official observer groups that they share their lesson learned from the track 1 of negotiations to the people, to the public, to the women groups, to the youth, that what were the challenges, how was the process, who are the ones that they don't want peace, or who are the ones that they are creating trouble for the process. So yet now we know that the peace talks are underway. There are systematically excluded women from the system. Unless the government of Afghanistan, the Taliban, and the international community take a serious steps toward including women, it will be, I will call it a disaster. And any agreement that will reach, it will not be inclusive and nor will be acceptable, because we know that the women of Afghanistan has changed and they are not the same as they were during the Taliban period. If we go through the recent 20 years of activism, advocacy, and movements, it have established great access to the grassroots activities and the local people. And women are those who can have easily access to the provinces. So they can be very effectively contributing to facilitating a bottom-up approach in the Afghan peace process. And Afghan leaders, the Taliban, and other actors should take into account that Afghan women have great leverage on any peace deal, and excluding them will have an adverse effect on the process and durability of negotiations and peace building efforts. They have to rethink about their strategies, and they have to adopt an inclusive approach and boost the chances for peace, because the inclusion of the Afghan women in the peace process is more even crucial, because if we consider the fact that the Taliban is not only group that they disregards the women. Afghanistan, as before I mentioned, patriarchal, discriminatory, male-dominated political and social system also sideline the women. For example, when the political leaders were discussing to introduce their members or representative for the negotiation team, all of them introduced their male male member, not women, specifically like the General Dostum, Marshal Dostum. He is a political leader. He introduced his son. Our another leader, Atta Mohammed Noor, he introduced his son. Both of them have their daughters, and their daughters are educated, but they prefer to be their sons on the team. So, and as I mentioned, that on the observers, on the mediators, there is no women in these two cases. Also, opportunity or a place that we can have women. If we see some research or studies about other countries' peace processes, those countries who have women as observers or women as mediators, so their process is much more successful than those who don't have. I believe that the inclusion of Afghan women in the peace process is a must issue, and if it is ignored or excluded, so the Taliban, the Afghan government, and the international community will go under another questions that they ignore the half of the population of the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, and thank you for actually taking up this fourth division of how women are actually not there into negotiation, mediation, observation, as well as at the technical front. And definitely, it will definitely be a disaster when you're actually excluding almost like 50% of the population. And if I just mention about one particular inclusion part, so there was a particular peace process that took place in Kenya some time back, and it was really sustainable because of the inclusion of women at all different levels. So definitely, we have great abundance of evidence with us to mention this thing that yes, inclusion of women actually makes the entire process really sustainable. Now, if I just move further on the later, when we're talking about inclusion and diversity, another group that we usually discuss is refugees and displaced people. So I would really like to understand what is the situation of refugees who are considered as marginalized communities, mainly. What is their position in terms of the inclusion in the peace process currently in Afghanistan? So, Amartya, would you like to go first?
Thank you so much. I will elaborate more on the questions. The migrants who came back to Afghanistan, or the immigrants who are living abroad. I will discuss both. Now, since we have social media tools, Facebook, Twitter, a lot of people who migrated from Afghanistan and they're living abroad. So through social media platforms, they're sharing their concerns, they have their campaigns, and they are trying to be included, and they are consistently involved in raising their voices in terms of bringing peace and sharing their suggestions, recommendations, whatever, on government through social media platforms. And also why they've been doing it since there's COVID-19, the youth who, in particular migrants who are in Afghanistan, they may not be directly involved as far as I know, because lack of opportunities for such discussions We see in a great rate because now the youth that they have come back to Afghanistan, they are struggling with their daily well-being, I would say, majority, because there's not proper source where they can work and study. And out of 60% of them are in turbulent struggle. For now, youth who live in abroad, they have some online campaigns supporting the peace process, some of them sharing their suggestions. Some of them have directly contacted the government, and there are some minor developments on that. At the same time, the youth who lives in Afghanistan and they come back, they're not fully engaged, but somehow in a community level, they're raising their voices and they're coming up with the team, or they're also some of them being a part of NGO or any movements in rural areas where they can raise their voices and be a part of where they can deliver what they really want to be shared with the governments to have progress in the Afghan peace process.
Thank you so much, Zia. And without any further delay, because we are running out of time, I would like to ask Liam the same question. Where do you see refugees and migrants in the current peace process?
Thank you. Well, I want to go through a bit in details. Refugees and other forced migrants, even the internally displaced peoples, they are those groups that they are most affected and they are victims of violence. They are struggling to reestablish peaceful lives, and it's really not an easy task, particularly for youth who are frequently drawn into violent activities. In other countries, many aid agencies have responded by offering them programs of peace education programming. But unfortunately in Afghanistan, it's not the case. Due to the different insurgent group activities, international organizations are drawdowning their activities. And a lack of citizenship or legal status shouldn't mean that refugees have no voice in the political, economic, and social affairs of the countries, specifically their host countries. In fact, groups such as refugees, who are often excluded from political activities, have even greater need for an alternative means of political participation. And specifically, UNHCR in Afghanistan has also mentioned that around 2.5 million Afghans are refugees in different countries, and Afghanistan is the second largest countries in terms of the refugees and the first in the Asia. So they have also called on the states that another relevant stakeholders to include refugees, particularly women and youth, in key fora, institutions, and decision-making processes, and to support consultative process that enable refugees and host communities to assess their own needs and help to design appropriate responses. Despite this, in Afghanistan, there is no such initiative taken in place to listen to the voice of the refugees, to those who are internally displaced nowadays, as war is ongoing, and some of the around, I think, 35 districts are taken over by the Taliban. So most of the people are migrated from their place, or they are coming to the center of the provinces. They are facing challenges, but no group is there. No one is listening to them. No one is there to provide them shelters, provide them basic needs of lives. So considering all these issues, when a formal political participation is not possible for the refugees, so here is the place of the informal structures like the civil society organizations. In Afghanistan, the civil society is also trying to engage refugees into the peace process. They have raised the voice of some women, youth, minorities, and refugees, and they are doing lobbying to the leadership of peace structures to hear them and consider their demands and recommendations. But this is really not enough. However, we have the international instruments in Afghanistan, but still there is a need for the regional and international support to hear the voice of the refugees and engage them in these political, social activities. Furthermore, building capacity of refugees is a tool to make them able to be involved in the processes, like training them on different issues, on the entrepreneurship, youth, to just make end their dependency on the aids, or to make them sustain themselves and manage resources in a good way, or to have some leadership trainings for them, empowerment trainings, or some other activities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this comprehensive answer. And we actually have a question that specifically talks about the role of the international community itself. And I guess you have covered it almost like you have covered the entire question itself. But since we are already discussing about this thing, I would like to ask that since you have been mentioning that international community, they are trying, they have their own activities, but they may not work on ground given the contextualized situation that we have on ground right now. So where do you see is the gap between what the international community is doing and what is the situation on ground, and how can those gaps be covered? What are the initiatives or what are the things that international community really need to look at when they are designing any intervention? So anyone like to go first? Maybe Gia.
Well, yeah. So there is a potential. The potential is the youth, because I am aware of the different youth groups are created. There is a lot of youth organizations are established, and they are the ones who are willing to work without having any incentives or any more fees or more paying or monetary issues to them. So voluntarily, they are willing to work something for the society. It is really important in the design stage of the programs, the projects, there should be a data collection based on the needs of the society, and it's the youth who can provide that data accurately, and that data, based on that data, the programs and projects should be designed. Since as Zia has also mentioned, but based on some other data, around 70% of the population is the youth. So in every place they are there, the groups are active, and they have the knowledge of their community, that their community is in need of which items or in need of which activities to be taken to solve the challenge or to tackle the issues that they are facing, even the local conflicts or the local issues that they have at the community. So international community should more focus on the youths, should have more opportunity for the youth involvement and youth engagement if they really want to assist the Afghanistan people. And this is the opportunity that it can be benefited both sides, the international community and the Afghan people.
Thank you, ma'am. And I guess one important point that is that I'm actually getting from your discussion is regarding the local knowledge that youth possesses and how it should be utilized whenever we are designing any particular intervention. And at this particular point, I would like Zia to please mention what do you think is the major gap with whatever the international community is trying to do in Afghanistan, and specifically talk about the data collection part that you have been doing. Like, what are the challenges of those data collection and what are the results? Have you been able to make an impact, and what are the impacts basically?
Thank you for the questions. I would say international community in the past 20 years have been greatly contributed on education, well-being of the youths at the same time throughout the region. And they have also contributed greatly on the security aspects of the country. In terms of the data collection in the provinces, I would say the major problem is security, because The areas where you're going to interview the individuals, they have been influenced by the Taliban. Now more than 35 districts in Afghanistan been influenced and captured by the Taliban. So that's very difficult to go to these areas and collect data. That's one of the major problems. And other challenges in data collection is the unwillingness of people, because a lot of people do not want to share the insights and to take their time because of the sensitivity they have in the mindset that they're in the rural areas. So these are the reason and the gaps between them. And if I'm getting your questions right, you said like international community has been cooperating and they're supporting, but there are some major points where more often the support that they are providing, people are not receiving it, because the major problem that we found out in our gap maps and interviewing people in the provinces, this is the corruption. Let me be very clear and honest in that. That's one of the reasons why in rural areas, governments been in struggle with it, because of that reason, that there is a huge corruptions in rural areas in every aspect of the life of the people, and that's what separates people from the government. And that's the reason why recently a lot of international NGOs also reported on that the level of corruption in Afghanistan is so high, unfortunately. But youth are the only hope, as far as I've interacted and connected with a lot of NGOs in Afghanistan. So it's getting into the concentration of youth, and we are committed and we are hopeful for bringing some positive changes where we can advocate and look for ways where we can eliminate this corruption. But I think that would be a very difficult job, but we are hopeful and we are committed for that.
Thank you, Amati, and specifically bringing up the main question regarding corruption, how it has been impacting the entire efforts in Afghanistan negatively so far. Because we are actually running out of time, so most probably this would be our last question for the discussion. So we see that the dominant narrative around youth is usually as the perpetrator of violence, and how they're so vulnerable to the misguided. But we have seen that there are multiple reports, as well as there are multiple examples that we have, that youth are very significantly working towards peace and reconciliation. So where do you see this particular narrative coming in, and what could be done to change this narrative? So I guess, Sia, you would like to go first, because you are coming from that particular position, I believe.
Yes, thank you so much. I would like to go in more details and with a little bit background. Recently, I was working on research with a group of UNESCO and JIP. We are working on South Asian Violent Extremism Report. While doing a research for that, why youths are joining radicalized group. At some point, I would like to agree at that statement, because a lot of youth has been joining radicalized group and they've been misguided. Because there's three major drivers. One is lack of educational opportunities, poverty, and unemployment. In the context of Afghanistan, the youth that have been joining the extremist groups, these are the three reasons why they're joining, because there's lack of education opportunities. They cannot go ahead with the education. That's why they've been recruited for the radicalized groups, and they're against the government. Poverty has been a great pressure for the youth in rural areas, because a lot of youth in Afghanistan, they're responsible for their families. And more often, the pressure that they are just carrying out, leading them to join the radicalized group. Lack of employment in Afghanistan, which in rural areas, people are terribly in struggle to find their daily expenses. Based on research, 95 people in Afghanistan earning $2, less than $2 per day, which is very difficult, and that's the reason why they're joining these groups. However, youth in Afghanistan are taking part and contributing greatly, as far as Ms. Lim also mentioned, that they are running NGOs, they are in the government, they are making changes. We have sacrifices of like our national forces that they have to use. The narrative, if we want to change that narrative where we support you to be more on a positive way, is to provide more education opportunities, support them financially, and have employment opportunities. And that's the responsibility of the government. At the same time, the international community. In Kabul, it also depends on the environment. I would like to point out, if you are in Kabul, you have for a lot of opportunities where you can, at least if you're not going to the university, you're living in an environment where people telling you that what are the right things and what are the wrong. But unfortunately, the environment in rural areas like the province and rural Sudan, the environment itself shows that they should be joining the radicalized group and to be against the government. So that's why more opportunities needed to be provided to youth in rural areas in Afghanistan to be a part of developed communities where there's more education opportunities to be engaged, learn, ideate, and design what they're really looking for, which is very important. And that's the points that they should consider, the Afghan government and also the international community, to contribute and give hand to the youth in the rural areas. And that's the only thing that also can eliminate this false narrative of that's being against the youth. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ria. And I guess one important thing that is coming out of the discussion that ma'am also mentioned is that international community as well as government has to play an important role in terms of providing more opportunities to youth, whether it's in education or employment. That's very significant. And coming straight to Lima, ma'am, where do you think this narrative of youth as a cooperative is coming in, and what could be done to change this narrative?
Well, I think it can be done to define the peace. What peace really means to youth. So youth have different perspectives of the peace. Like some of the youth, they are thinking that the peace is the only absence of violence. Peace means that life without war and conflict. For these, peace is just a primary end of insurgent attacks. But for some other youths, for them, peace as a combination of development and social justice. In these groups, peace is often linked to prosperity and opportunity. End of violence is also implied, but peace is more about creating a just society. We know that the peace is a long, ongoing process. It means that negotiating between the hostile groups and solving conflicts through the negotiations. And we are intended to view the ongoing conflict as not just between insurgents and the Afghan government and their NATO allies, but it's a more complex conflict with numerous sides. But some other youths, they are defining the peace as equality and equal treatment by the government. Some are saying that peace is really peace when a government is free of corruption. So changing the narratives is depending on the analysis of these youths from peace, as they are also mentioned, some young people in the Kabul, they are really optimistic and they have more opportunity and they have more trust on the civil society and non-government organizations in shaping politics for their better future. And it's easily can change, they easily can change this narrative, because those who are serving at the government, those who are serving at the civil society, those who are serving at the international organizations in Kabul, all of them are youths. And they are working for a great future for the country. And specifically, most of the youths who are in the government, they are less corrupted ones in comparing to those who are elders. So by providing such life examples, we can change this dominant narrative that youths are not only the predators of violence, they are those who bring the positive changes.
Thank you so much, Neha, ma'am. And I guess this entire arena of defining the piece itself and how we should move from the negative piece toward the positive piece that is more sustainable and links to the transformation of the conflict is very important and should be emphasized entirely. And with this, I guess we have come to the end. And before passing on to mentor to my colleague and friend to give the word of thanks, I would just like to highlight some of the key things that came out, like the role of the international actors as well as the government to provide more opportunities to youth in terms of education and employment, to give them an alternate. And at the same time, we need to recognize that youth are already doing a lot. It's just that they have not been recognized and included, not just in the peace process, but in all different spheres of life. And any peace process that is not inclusive of gender as well as of youth won't be more sustainable in Afghanistan. That is very well highlighted in the entire discussion. And with these words, I would like to pass on the mentor to Akil for word of thanks.
Thank you, Jigyasa. Well, I'm really honored to deliver vote of thanks to the brilliant and experienced panelists. It was really a great time with you all. On behalf of the entire institute, I would like to thank you for making the event interesting and meaningful. In a very short time, you shared a lot of crucial and deep insights and revealed some interesting facts about the youth in Afghanistan peace process. Thank you so much for taking out time from your busy schedule and enlightening us with your knowledge. We will definitely wait for some more interactions like today for improving our knowledge on Afghanistan and youth and their contributions in peacemaking processes. Meanwhile, I would also like to thank the audience whose participation and suggestions always help us do better. Thank you all for your time. Have a good evening and God bless.